Welcome back everyone, and finally it's time to get a true fight to the finish with Arkveld in. So, realistically, by this point, you have a pretty good idea how he is, although I will say each successive time you fight him in relation to any story mission, spoilers, this includes the final one when you reach Hunter Rank 41, then it gets successively a little bit harder. His moveset gets just a little bit faster. It gets to where he really utilizes the energy built up in those chains more, but he's still basically the same fight. And that fight is really flashy. It's entertaining. There's some actual danger to it. He has some moves that can catch you off guard. He can pretty rapidly kill you if you're not paying much attention to what he's doing. But he's still overall not that challenging. But that's sort of the general theme of this game. Like, even skill aside, the game's a little bit on the easier side. I do distinctly remember World being pretty easy at first and feel like it wasn't going to be that big a deal until they actually started releasing some of the title updates, and then things like Behemoth just destroyed everyone. Although to be fair, Behemoth was so weird of a fight, it's kind of understandable why people had trouble with it. But there were other additional updates besides Behemoth that were difficult. So I fully expect that most of the difficulty will be fleshed out in the title updates and event quests and crossovers and whatnot. Now, that being said, back to Arkveld. He's a really cool design for a monster. I'm still not entirely certain exactly what all can be done to him. I know you can cut his tail off. I know you can break both of his horns. I know you can break his chains, or what I think those things are called that are on his wings. Although they remind me of the whip sword that I think her name was Ivy had in Soul Calibur. So, cool concept. Something I didn't really expect to see in here. And I like the concept for how he feeds and why he's actually a problem in his environment. He's more or less a really good analogy for an introduced predator into a new ecosystem. In case you guys don't know, the subjects I teach are science subjects. I teach chemistry, ecology, and anatomy and physiology. I'm not an expert in any of them, but Arkveld is a good example of what happens with an introduced species, where there's no real competition for it, and it can just go around and devastate everything around it. They kind of coined that off with the whole, he can't really regulate his hunger thing, because he's just kind of pretending to eat. So he's super ravenous. They expand on that a little bit more in the post main story quests, so I'm not going to spoil that. There's an interesting reason why he developed that much of a ravenous hunger. But he's cool. His backstory is cool. The fight itself is actually interesting. Even if it's not particularly challenging, he's probably one of the more challenging monsters in the game. But you can still kind of face roll your way through it. Like, I'm not a great player. As long as you don't mind dying occasionally, it's not that bad to beat him. And from my experience with the post-game version, it's probably a little bit easier without the hunting companions, although, I don't know, that's just debatable. I didn't really use any of the SOSs in low rank, but I have used them in high rank since hitting that, and they definitely make the fights a little bit more manageable for the most part. But Arkveld's kind of one of those that his worst attacks come when you've got a little bit of distance with him. So if you're really right up in his face, a good chunk of his stuff is not that hard to avoid. That's one of the reasons why he leaps around so much. He's not leaping around to catch up with you, so to speak. He's leaping around to put a little bit of distance to be able to use those whips to his advantage. So, as long as you hug him, he's just not that terrible. But he looks fantastic. He looks like something out of a nightmare. He's like a purified version of a xenomorph, which I guess makes sense given another monster that's coming later on. Not later on as in DLC, later on as in high rank. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling on and let you all enjoy watching the rest of the fight. Have a good night, and remember, if I can beat it, so can you.